behind the, or in front of the screen that is showing perhaps one of the iconic movies that are attached to the word archaeology. Now, I kind of bend a phrase there because my colleagues will all insist that I say that, well, Indiana Jones, was not an archaeologist. But, they address this at the bar, where they're talking about, well, perhaps they had fallen from the true light. And I believe that they're talking about their, the push and pull between antiquarianism and archaeology. And these characters are dancing around the world of archaeology. Are they really practicing archaeology when Indiana Jones goes into the cave and finds the golden statue and sticks it in a sack? I'm afraid he's not. But throughout this whole series, if you've seen the whole series, and I imagine that you have, you'll know that this whole push and pull goes on and on through the whole thing. And so we're looking at the many direction tug of war between archaeology, adventure, antiquarianism, hard-fisted colonialism, and also really good old archaeology as a branch of anthropology. So, I'm here in my Indiana Jones outfit, and this hat, I talked to my friends earlier about, how authentic do you really want to get? She mentions that I have been practicing archaeology for a long time. So how did I get into this thing? Well, years ago, when I was about so tall, I decided that a trap needed to be built in my parents' yard in order to catch whatever creature came by, primarily the family dog, or if my sister was so unlucky, perhaps she would wind up in my trap as well. Well, I caught no animals or my sister, but in the process, I dug up this spear point. And it had never occurred to me before that there was anybody other than my folks had ever chosen to live at this spot. And it opened this huge world before me that there is more than just me here. There are people who have lived on this one spot over and over again for, eventually it was informed to me that was about a 3,000-year-old spear point, and the person who had lived there had called it home just as I had. And that set me down a rabbit hole which I have never crawled out of, trying to kind of put together a history of people in a place. So this all brings me, I was small when I started this thing. What does this have to do with Indiana Jones? Well, naturally, when the movie came out, I was still, I was about this tall, and so I would get my mother to bring me to the theater on Saturday morning so I could sit in as many episodes of this movie as I possibly could see because, I loved it. And I was in love with Marion. And so this went on, and just very recently I got to see the latest installment. And, Dr. Jones has been shot, 9 times, and has been drug under trucks and attacked by various slings and arrows. And I got up from watching that movie and I was a little bit stiff myself, but I can't claim that I have been shot 9 times or I've drug under a truck. This is my confession. I haven't ever crawled out from under a truck while it was moving. And but I have gotten awful creaky. But I have I have only rappelled down into a mortuary cave once. But anyhow, that's but there were no gold idols. Regardless, though, we have this kind of dramatic history that brings some of the spectacularness of exploring human history in any place. And of course, in the series of the movies, he goes all across the world. I have taken the stance of blooming where I was planted, and though I have tried really hard, when I open my mouth, my California accent has not yet been perfected. Yes, I am from Alabama, and I have practiced archaeology for the most part in Alabama, although it's brought me onto a couple of different continents as well. So I don't know. The question would be, is this a series of movies about archaeology? And I would say, maybe. I would say that, and Jones goes back and forth between it. He says, he first he's the guy who grabs the golden idol, yet at the same time, he is also the preservationist. And by the end of the series, he is working really hard to keep these things out from the say, antiquities market, which is about as anti-archaeology as you can get, where the value of an object is not the information about the person who made it, but it's simply the value of the object in itself. And it says, and it brings up the point that in archaeology, context is everything. So Jones goes from the point where he's pulling, golden idols out of their context to the point where he's wanting to preserve these actual artifacts that have been, gathered up. And in the last movie, again, the Nazis have been gathering the fabulous objects from all around the world to bring them somewhere other than where they belong. And the declaration is made, to the victor go the spoils, and so to the victor go the spoils, again, is perhaps about as un-archaeology as you get. However, when we say, and like riding on an airplane over here, they're like, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm an archaeologist. And they're like, wow, fabulous objects, essentially, is what comes to their mind, And I say, yes, I may actually at times deal with fabulous objects. I am completely fascinated by the folks who made those fabulous objects, though. So I bring my one actual prop, other than my hat, which I do wear, out doing archaeology, and I say on the inside, and this is one thing that the entire series really gets right, is one of the most important tools of the archaeology just may not be his shovel or his pick or, her water screen or some other gathering thing, but it's what is written down about the objects that are found in the context in which they are found. So I flipped through here, and it's for real. Here's some notes about none other than Marengo County, Alabama, which Richard Parker may be familiar with, and where we were looking for, late Pleistocene people and what they were doing in our old neighborhood, and sure enough, we found they were there. But anyhow, I don't know to say leave one great point in there is that we're if you're wanting the balance between the fabulous artifact and the truth about the people who did it, it's all in the context in which the fabulous thing is found. And the more that these kind of things can be documented in notes and everything, it brings a value to the thing that is way beyond any other object value. But I believe that I am to be answering questions. If you have any questions about, and I'll say you right here, yes.
So in the last movie, how did you feel about the villain being from the University of Alabama?
I love that. It was really exciting when he says, brings up University of Alabama, or he says Alabama University, which I was like, okay, they got close, but they didn't quite nail us. There is so much context in there, and that's why I think it is a beautifully made movie, because it is not just throwing that in there. And of course, there's the whole World War II history of Alabama as well. and which can be fairly complex if you start looking at who built the space program in Huntsville, Alabama, and it might have been a couple of characters who would have shown up in this movie, but at the same time, I have this, it's my alma mater, and I have stood in the same position at University of Alabama talking about archaeology to a bunch of students, and none of them, I was very disappointed. I was so excited when I first doing this. I was like, okay, which one is going to blink her eyes and say love you on them? And I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to pay somebody to do that. But so no, it's all, again, it's a beautifully made movie, and so I was a little bit thrilled when he said Alabama, and I was a little bit horrified all at the same time. So that's my answer. So yeah, yes,
So,
Dr. Jones.
So, do you also lecture, and what are certain topics that you cover on?
Yeah, okay. I find myself, when I was at the University of Alabama, I had the most generalized topic, great discoveries in archaeology, and so, and the idea was essentially to be a tour of all these, things that Indiana Jones might want to dig up, and of course I'm perhaps more interested in, what on earth did somebody eat 12,000 years ago in, say, what is now Mississippi? So it might be a little bit unexciting, but at the same time, I find it quite thrilling. So yeah, so I have found myself largely talking about the esoteric sort of thing of rocks and what people did with the rocks. Because I also have a geology background as well, and so I'll join those two together. But then again, rocks are things that last in dirt, and so that's something that we get to see a lot in archaeology. So you had a question?
Yeah, what's the most dangerous situation you've ever been in archaeology?
I will say right off, the most dangerous situation I found in archaeology was in North Alabama. And it was because there's this great story that goes on, and I'm going to have to give you the abbreviated version. But a colleague and I were again looking for whatever old thing happened to be in the way of this highway that was being built. And Alabama is, got a very complex geography, much like California. And this geography has like great waters filtered people in different ways. And there's one part of Alabama where everyone who was kicked out of Scotland and wound up in Ireland, and then kicked out of Ireland, and they wound up in North Alabama in the early 1800s, and they're still upset about it. They don't even know yet, but they're upset about it. So when the Alabama Department of Transportation, hated only less by the Alabama Power, sends a bunch of guys with some shovels and screens to go on in somebody's land for a highway, they're going to be pretty upset. And so, there are parts of the state where we will show up and everybody wants you over for sweet tea and fried chicken, and we all sit around on the front porch and have a great conversation. Then there are some places where they bring out the rifles if you slow down on the county road going past their place. Well, north central Alabama is that place. And so we were out in amongst some trees, minding our business, telling stories. I was operating the shovel. My colleague was operating the shaker screen. We were looking, and we started to find some American Indian artifacts that were about 6,000 years old. And we were like, yeah, this is great. And so we go over and we take the next scoop. I throw the dirt in, and my colleague yells out, "Ah!" a scream, and well, sure enough, just like Indiana Jones would be horrified by, there was a snake in the shaker screen. And so we all got over that and thought that was great. And then we heard this strange sound. It was like this whizzing, and then bang, whiz, bang. And I was like, hey. And she's like, what's that? I says, the last time I heard this, somebody was shooting at me. And sure enough, I don't have Indiana Jones' claim to fame of being actually hit 9 times, but I know about what it sounds like to get shot at. And I said, I think somebody's shooting at us. And so I come out of the trees and I go, hey, we're down here. And from up on top of the hill in the north central Alabama accent, the guy says, I know. It's like, great, we're doomed, you know. And so eventually, to cut the long story short, is I kick a cottonmouth out of the way on the way, that's a poisonous snake, while crossing the creek to get to this guy and to convince him to please let us out of his woods. And we're sorry, we aren't the Department of Transportation. We're just working for them. So that is perhaps one of the more dangerous situations I've been in. So yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, Rick, you got a question? Nope.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, Dr. Jones.
So, how often do you have to dissuade newcomers to the field of their, sort of notions of the glamour of archaeology as seen in these movies?
Almost perpetually. So again, the first question always is, oh yeah, I love dinosaurs. And I'm like, well, that is an ology. It's paleontology. But I have a great colleague. This would be Dr. Dumas, who you know up there, and she was doing her dissertation work at the original factory site of Tabasco in Avery Island, Louisiana, and doing exclusively archaeology, but 19th century archaeology. And so she was excavating the place that Tabasco was invented. And so, again, news, the journalists love to show up to these sort of things and show up exactly at the wrong time. And it turns out that Mr. McElhaney had not only invented a soon-to-be popular pepper sauce, but also was a collector of vertebrate fossils. And so just as the journalist is walking up, she's lifting this huge femur and throwing it out of a hole. And it's like, and of course it feeds every misconstrued stereotype about, well, archaeology and fossals, it's like, oh, well, I give up. Just write what you want. It was a giant 40-pound fossil right there, I'm looking for what people did, but yeah, and then again, also the whole thing of, the favorite question, and I expect it all the time, what is the best thing you've ever found, and there have been great things found. A lot of times I'm looking to see, really, I'm so excited when I find the border of an ethnic group at 400 AD, in eastern Mississippi. It's like magic when you put together that sort of a thing. But at the same time, I found some pretty neat stuff that come out of the ground too. So, I don't know. I'll be glad to speak more about archaeology to anybody. The only thing is you get what you pay for. So, very good. Any other questions, anytime? Do we have a minute? No minutes. All right, y'all. Well, thanks so much, and I'll be around. I'd love to talk to y'all later.